Hello and welcome back to HeFPipe. So we've just finished the portion of the pipeline where we generate subsets of data and run the regression analyses on them. And in this installment, we're going to talk about feeding the pipeline other user-generated data subsets, and we'll also talk at the end about how the regression results get processed into CSV files by the pipeline. Okay, so now the pipeline is prompting us whether we want to run the regressions on CSV files of our own making. So let's say you have another data set or a group of data sets that you want to analyze that does not, for whatever reason, lend itself well to being subdivided based on specific trait values. So that's clearly why this third component of the regression module exists. So we'll type yes or y if this is the case. And you're then asked to specify the path of the CSV file you intend to use. Let's say, for example, that we wish to analyze data in the example dataset that are infected by any permutation of the viruses V1, V2, and V3. So in other words, I only want individuals who are infected by at least one of the three viruses in the data subset. And this is relatively tough to accomplish using the protocol described in the data subset regression section. So it would have been really tough to run a data subset analysis on that. But it's pretty straightforward to accomplish it manually in Excel or, by manipulating the spreadsheet. So what we do is we create the CSV file manually, and you can see an example of this in the example data. I provided a user-generated data subset called at least one virusinfection.csv. And let's open it and take a look at what it looks like. So it looks exactly like MLH output.csv, right? So it has all the fitness traits or the trait values and then all of the multilocus heterozygosity estimators. Only it contains only individuals that are infected by one or more of these three viruses. So it's a subset of the data. Now we just specify the file's path in terminal. So using the example data provided, I would either drag the file into terminal and remove the space at the end and press return, or I would type it in manually. So I'm going to do the easier of those two, which is drag it in, get rid of this little space here, and press return. You're then prompted to type a directory name in which to store the results. So in our example, let's just type at least one virus infection, and you'll see that'll create a directory here called at least one virus infection. And the rest of this component of the module behaves as in the full dataset regressions component and in the data subset regressions component. So you've already seen it, and I'll run through the syntax really quickly here with minimal comments, but you can refer to the previous two videos for clarification. So let's do Gaussian, clean weight initial, just using MLH as a predictor. And that's the only model I want to run. And you can continue looping through this component for as many regressions, right? I could have typed yes here instead of no. And for as many user-generated data subsets as needed. Let's say you had other files besides at least one virus infection. Then you could tell the pipeline that you'd want to continue with more regressions on files of your own making, and it would ask you for the path of the next file. So let's say I'm done and I don't have any other data subsets. The last thing HeFPipe does now is provide you with the option to convert the regression results generated from any permutation of the regression components, right? So all of the regression analyses, the full dataset regressions, the data subset regressions, and now the user-generated data subset regressions. It can convert those results, which are now as text files, into CSV files. And in each case, what the pipeline does is it generates a new directory called processed model output, and that's nested inside the regressions directory that's created every time you run regression analyses. Now the pipeline is going to scan the relevant regressions directory for text files, and then we'll use regular expressions to extract the trait name, regression coefficient, standard error, score of the statistical test, p-value of the regression test, and type of the score, whether it's, for example, t-score or z-score, from the text files, and then we'll list these in a CSV formatted file called whatever the error distribution designation is, response variable on predictor variable or variables, full dataset process.csv. Okay, so let's say we wanted to convert all of our full dataset text files from the regressions we ran. We'll type yes here. Now let's say we wanted to convert the full dataset text files in the data subsets directory. Well, yes, we want to do that, but in this case, we're going to have to actually provide the path to the directory of the text files in that data subset. So we go to data subsets, and we would provide the path to this regressions directory. Right, so we just drag it into terminal, we get rid of that last space, I make sure, since it's a directory, that I add the backslash at the end, press return. Now, do I want to continue with another data subset? Well, I don't have any other data subsets, I only have the one, so no. Do I want to convert the full dataset text files generated from the user-entered regression spreadsheet into CSV files? Well, since we just did that over here, yes, I do. So I'll type yes, and then I'll have to provide the path to this directory here. And that's the only user-entered regression spreadsheet, so I'm done. And it actually will tell you you're done. So let's take a look at what the process model outputs look like. Since we only ran one response variable, there's only going to be one row of data in this particular CSV file. But you could see the estimate or regression coefficient here. You could see the standard error, the score, the p-value, the type of score. So it just renders it in the CSV format, which is easier to analyze. Here's another example of what it looks like in, let's say, the full model regressions. So I went to the regressions directory, process model output, and you can see we ran two different response variables and several different predictors. So that's what the output looks like once it gets processed. Finally, once you've run the pipeline using the example dataset, you simply have to provide and/or edit the 5 CSV files provided in the example dataset using your own data, replace the allele reports. So edit these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 files. Edit the allele reports, which are contained in here. Make sure that they're CSV formatted. And there are ways to batch convert Excel files into CSV files easily in Mac OS X, and I provide a link to one of them in the user's manual. It's just freeware. And after you make those modifications, you can just rerun the pipeline on your data. So I hope that this has been clear. Please feel free to email me at mark.aaron.fisher@gmail.com, mark.aarom.fisher@gmail.com for any questions, and I would update the pipeline, user's manual, or tutorial videos as necessary. Thanks a lot.